I've been a mega wrestling fan forever since the New Generation. I had my Diesel Power Glove, my Undertaker urn, my Razor Ramon foam finger. So when my aunt told me that her next door neighbor was a wrestler, an aspiring wrestler, and that I could go to one of his shows for free, I was pumped, man. Now, this is the mid-90s, so the indies are a lot different than they were in the 2000s. There wasn't any Ring of Honor. There wasn't any PWG. It was basically a bunch of guys who look like they should be on a rascal in Walmart and Jimmy Snuka. For whatever reason, Jimmy Snuka was always there. And then, like, some guy who didn't look like Doink who said he was Doink. I don't remember Doink being Puerto Rican, but, nonetheless. I watched this event. I was really pumped to see this event because I'd never met a wrestler before, and wrestlers are these mythical creatures. So I got there with my little cousins, my dad, and my uncle, and we were waiting, and everybody kind of came out, dressed in like their high school wrestling singlets and sweatpants. And finally, the guy who we were supposed to see, his match came up, and up to this point, everybody had Guns N' Roses songs or Quiet Riot, but he comes out to Wagner. I'm like, well, this is bizarre. My dad even looked at me and goes, is that Wagner? I didn't know who Wagner was at the time. And lo and behold, this guy comes out dressed as, you guessed it, a neo-Nazi. That's right. My aunt's next-door neighbor's gimmick was the Third Reich. And he started doing the Heil Hitler. And my cousins, who were younger, did not know what Nazis were. They started doing the Heil Hitler back. I had to slap their arms away. We watched the match. He ended up losing. I tried to cheer when he lost, but my cousins went boo. And I'm like, oh my God, they haven't read the Diary of Anne Frank yet. They're young. My aunt, when she heard about this, obviously freaked out. She talks to her neighbor and says, hey, look, I really don't think that wrestling character you're doing is appropriate at all. And he said, I'm really sorry. I'm just, trying to be a bad guy. It's just, a way to get heat. So my aunt thought that she had touched a nerve. I guess cut to like 2 weeks later, my aunt is a nurse, and she has like a weird shift. She's leaving at 4 a.m. And this guy pulls up dressed in a Klan robe. So a real lateral move. I mean, he didn't get pulled over, but then again, it is the Jersey Turnpike, and they probably recognized him from meetings. All right, have a good one.
Wow, it just kept on building and kept on building. That's unbelievable, an unbelievable story. Of course, all of these calls are anonymous. Sometimes I will have friends or people I know or like come on the show and tell a story in order to cross-promote a little bit. And I don't know who that caller was, but it sounded a lot like stand-up comedian Dan St. Germain, who has a very funny podcast called Wrestle Roasts on the All Things Comedy Podcast Network. The podcast stars Dan St. Germain and the roast battle champion from Comedy Central, Mike Lawrence, along with a lot of their funny friends, where they roast and mark out to wrestlers. Check out Wrestle Roasts wherever you get your podcasts. And that was such a great story. It does remind me as a young Jewish wrestler driving up to Cleveland All-Pro Wrestling in the year 2000, maybe 2001. Just a couple years into professional wrestling, we get to the locker room, and there I am, Jewish, and not really out as Jewish, if you will. It was something I always feared because I was just a young kid, basically, and I was in a business of men, for sure, especially when I started in late 99. So many men. And in that Cleveland All-Pro Wrestling locker room was a wrestler named the Basket Nazi, and I didn't know what to do. I guess I shook his hand. Why did I shake his hand? I shook his hand. The Basket Nazi. And he did a couple of shows that I did with him. And he was always the Basket Nazi. And nobody said anything. But I guess it's the same exact situation or scenario that this person who sounded a lot like Dan St. Germain was in. These were the shows. These were the independent shows of the 90s, early 2000s. They were trying to get heat. Thankfully, things have changed for the better. They're not there yet. They probably will never get there. But slowly and surely, some of the shit is getting pushed away as we become a little more self-conscious. But we can't take away stories like that happened to us in a time when those kind of stories were able to happen. Hey, thanks for watching. That call was part of a whole podcast called Wrestling Anonymous. Listen to the whole thing weekly. Wherever you listen to your podcast, go subscribe. And while you're at it, subscribe right here on YouTube to Colt Cabana's channel. Thank you.